Hello, and thank you for joining us today for a presentation about NOP Import Certificates, a new requirement under the Strengthening Organic Enforcement Final Rule of the USDA. My name is Beth Rota. I'm the Organic Program Director at Quality Certification Services.
Hi, and I am joining Beth today. My name is Meredith Morgan. I am the Service and Support Manager at Quality Certification Services.
We've put together a presentation for you to help you understand the requirement for NOP import certificates, both for exporters that are located outside of the US and exporting USDA organic products or products certified to an equivalent standard to the US, as well as importers that will be bringing and responsible for documenting the import of organic products into the United States. I'll go through a presentation with a couple of slides, and then we have a curated list of questions that came from a presentation with some of our clients that we will go through and try to get all of your questions answered in this format. You'll notice that we have subtitles on below the slides so that those of us, so that our clients who are joining the presentation from our international offices or working in Latin America can follow along with the presentation as well. So first of all, what is an NOP import certificate? Well, an NOP import certificate is a type of transaction certificate with a data set that contains detailed information about the quantity and origin of organic product that's being imported into the United States. The purpose of the import certificate is to document the organic status and quantity of imported organic products as they travel from a certified organic exporter in a foreign country to the United States. NOP import certificates ensure audible business transactions by documenting that imported products are organic and may be sold, represented, and distributed as organic within the United States. After the implementation of the Strengthening Organic Enforcement Final Rule on March 19, 2024, any organic agricultural product that's imported into the United States must be associated with a valid NOP import certificate generated by the certifying agent of the final certified exporter sending the product to the United States. This requirement applies to products certified as USDA organic or traded under an established equivalence arrangement. Section 205-273 of the USDA organic regulations detail the requirements for imports to the United States. The updated regulations also require that all importers of organic products are certified organic, as importing is no longer an exempt category of activity under the rule. Thus, the import certificate acts as a certification handshake across the border so that there is a certified exporter to the US and a certified importer in the United States. Organic exporters located outside of the US who are certified by QCS must request an NOP import certificate prior to export by providing relevant details on the QCS NOP import certificate request form, which is available on our website or by contacting the QCS office. NOP import certificates must be requested by an authorized representative of the certified operation for a specific volume of a single organic product that is listed on the operation's product verification form. NOP import certificates use harmonized tariff schedule codes, or HTS codes, to identify organic imports. When completing the NOP import certificate request form, use the full 10-digit HTS code. There are many commodities that do not have organic-specific HTS codes. If there is no organic HTS code, a conventional HTS code for the same product should be used on the NOP import certificate. HTS codes can be found on the U.S. International Trade Commission website, and our NOP import certificate request form provides a link to that website. Separate NOP import certificates are required when multiple commodities, such as blueberries and strawberries, or multiple HGS codes are within the same shipment. However, one NOP import certificate can be used for the same commodity or HGS code that is being shipped in multiple package sizes. And if products have different names but share the same HGS code, only one import certificate is needed. The certified organic exporter must time the request to allow sufficient time for QCS to verify its validity and generate the NOP import certificate, and for the exporter to deliver the completed NOP import certificate to the importer or customs broker before the Customs and Border Protection filing requirements for the product. The operator can export the entire volume listed on the NOP import certificate in a single shipment or in multiple shipments within a specified period of time. QCS verifies the validity of the NOP import certificate request to ensure the product to be exported is certified organic and that organic integrity is maintained. Approved NOP import certificates are generated within the Organic Integrity Database. Organic products may not be imported into the United States without an approved NOP import certificate. The certified organic exporter provides the NOP import certificate to the U.S. importer. The importer or their designated customs broker enters the NOP import certificate data into the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, or CBP, Automated Commercial Environment, ACE, as part of its standard import filing process. As certified organic products move from the exporting country into the United States, all entry documentation, including but not limited to bills of lading, bills of sale, commercial invoices, and packing lists, must clearly state that the product is organic. Exporting and importing operations must maintain records required under Section 205-103 of the USDA Organic Regulations. This includes sufficient records to provide an audit trail to determine the source, type, and quantity, transfer of ownership, and transportation of any agricultural product labeled as organic. QCS will be asking importers that we certify how they're verifying the records associated with the products that they're importing, including the NOP import certificates for those products. This last slide summarizes the process and responsibilities of the various players who are involved in the export and import of organic products into the United States, including organic exporters, certifying agents, importers, and customs brokers. The Strengthening Organic Enforcement, or SOE, final rule requires that all exporters and importers are certified organic and that any organic agricultural product imported to the United States must be associated with a valid NOP import certificate generated by the certifying agent of the final certified exporter sending the product to the United States. The QCS website at www.qcsinfo.org provides resources and other video tutorials to help you understand the USDA organic regulations and the organic certification process. Please reach out to us with any questions about the information presented here. Now I'm going to turn it over to Meredith to ask some questions that we have received. These are frequently asked questions that we've received from our clients about NOP import certificates. I'm going to leave the slideshow on so you can refer to this as I'm answering questions. And I'll also be repeating the questions because the translation service in PowerPoint only works for the host of the PowerPoint. So sorry for the duplication, but it's so that those that are following along with the subtitles can understand the questions as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Beth. So the first question that we have, is this only for the US, and do suppliers need to provide the import certificate? So only for entities in the US. And does the supplier need to provide the import certificate?
Remember that this is about products that are being imported into the United States from another country. So the products could be produced in a country like Ecuador, where they are certified to the US Department of Agriculture National Organic Program, or they could be coming from countries like Canada or Europe or Taiwan that have equivalence arrangements with the United States. Regardless of the source of the product, it has to have an NOP import certificate to be imported into the United States. I understand it's a little confusing because of the language. The NOP import certificates are actually requested by the exporter, so the certifier of the exporter. So the certifier may be accredited to the USDA, or they may be accredited to another standard that has equivalence from the US. The exporter requests the NOP import certificate from their certifier. The certifier validates the information in it, issues the NOP import certificate through the organic integrity database, and then that exporter has to provide a copy of the NOP import certificate to the importer, and the importer has to then maintain that import certificate, and the importer or their customs broker is responsible for entering that information into the CBP ACE system with other importing. It's just another requirement on top of already existing requirements for imports.
Excellent, thank you. The next question, which you did kind of briefly cover, is if my client is receiving imported product through a certified organic broker or trader, who has the responsibility to provide their import certificate to the end user?
The question was, if your client is sourcing organic products from a certified organic broker or trader, who is responsible for providing the NOP import certificate to the end user? That's a really great question. And it's the importer or whoever is doing the importing is responsible for obtaining a copy of the NOP import certificate when that product gets imported into the United States. They're obtaining that from the exporter and entering that information into the ACE system with the Customs and Border Protection automated commercial environments. So it's really only the exporter and the importer that are at all responsible for NOP import certificates. If you're buying product from an importer, you don't need to worry about the NOP import certificate at all. If you're located in the US and you're buying imported products, unless you're the importer. If you're the importer, you or your customs broker are responsible for entering that. And if you are the certified organic importer, even if you use a customs broker to enter all of that information into you, the importer, the certified organic importer, has to maintain the NOP import certificate as part of the record keeping system for all of those imports, even if they're working with an uncertified customs broker to just do the brokering. And really, it's only the customs brokers. They're the only type of brokers that are exempt from certification still under the strengthening organic enforcement, because customs brokering is different than regular brokering. It's just entering information into that automated commercial environment. It's not involved with the buying or selling.
Excellent. Where will the import certificate be listed or found on the integrity database, or will it be publicly downloadable? How do people access these?
The question is about how do you get access to the NOP import certificate? Where do you find it? The NOP import certificate is generated in the organic integrity database, but that will only be accessible to the organic certifier who's operating within the organic integrity database, and to the certified organic importer. That certificate will be, when it's approved by the certifier, It will be generated and emailed to the contact person, the main contact person. It will go automatically from the organic integrity database to the main contact person at the exporter. So it's the responsibility of the exporter to let their certifier know if they need that NOP import certificate to be emailed to anybody other than the main contact person. And we have a place for that on our NOP import certificate request form that you can let us know if there are other people in your organization that need to have a copy of that, in which case we will email it to you. And then it's the exporters, the certified exporters working outside of the US responsibility to make sure that NOP import certificate gets transmitted to the importer within the time period in which they need it to enter it into Customs and Border Protection's automated commercial environment.
Excellent. The next question is about someone who is an agent and broker in Canada, who is located in Canada and is importing US organic products into Canada, export from the US into Canada. Have any of those regulations changed?
The question is about products that are USDA organic, being produced in the US and being exported from the US to Canada. This regulation about NOP import certificates does not apply to exports of USDA organic products to any other country. Each country that has an equivalence arrangement with the US has its own requirements for the type of certificate that is needed. For example, exports from the US to Europe must have a certificate of inspection, but none of those regulations are changing under the strengthening organic enforcement final rule, because those are requirements of those other countries. So the NOP import certificate is a requirement of the US Department of Agriculture for imports of organic products into the US, and it doesn't affect exports of USDA organic products going elsewhere. Those are defined by the rules of the other country. So no changes to the export requirements for USDA organic products going out of the US. And the USDA has a great page on their website about international trade agreements where you can go to understand what the requirements are for exporting organic products from the US.
Excellent, thank you. The next question is, if an exporter and an importer can be the same business entity with multiple locations. So for example, one business entity, one office in the EU, one office in the US, the same business entity, both exports and then also imports.
The question is whether the exporter and the importer can be the same business with multiple locations. And yes, that's completely fine. You can have the exporter and the importer be part of the same business, in which case the NOP export certificate is issued by the certifier of the exporter, and the importer works the same way. So the different parts of that business that are doing those different activities, they probably have to have separate organic certifications because they're located in different countries, and they would have different legal entities because they would have to be legally established in each of those countries.
Excellent. Next up is a question. This is from someone who is an importer who receives NOP certificates from overseas. The question is the only change that we must provide the NOP certificate to our customs broker before entry date or before export takes place at origin?
So the question came from an importer. I want to make sure I understand this correct, Mayor. From an importer that's located in the US, wants to understand if the change is, because depending on the source of the product, NOP import certificates were required for exports from some countries already. And they're asking if the change is that, essentially they're just asking what changed, right? And about the timing of the import certificate. So the change is that NOP import certificates are now required for every organic products that's being imported into the US, with very, very few exceptions, right? Exceptions like somebody purchasing something on Amazon for, like, the end user is purchasing something for their own personal use, and that stuff's not going through this type of ACE environment. I would direct you to consult the NOP website to understand what those exceptions are. I don't have a whole list of those. But really the change is that the NOP certificate is required whether you're trading something to the US under a trade agreement, an organic equivalence agreement, or something is certified to the USDA organic regulations and coming into the US. As far as the timing, and this is a little bit different than what's required if you're familiar with exporting products from a third country into the EU. The NOP requirement is different. So the export certificate needs to be requested by the exporter before the shipment leaves the country of origin, right? But it doesn't have to be issued before it leaves the country of origin. It has to be issued within enough time so that it has been evaluated and validated by the certifier and issued to the exporter and transmitted from the exporter to the importer or their customs broker in time to meet the filing requirements for Customs and Border Protection's automated commercial environments. Now, keep in mind that there is a risk that the certifier will not validate or approve the NOP import certificate. That, always the risk. There is responsibilities that the certifier has to make sure that the products that is in that shipment or, associated with that NOP import certificate, because remember, they can apply to more than one shipment. It's a specific volume of a single product under a single harmonized tariff code. That has to be validated as being organic, and each certifier will have its own procedures and processes for validating the organic integrity of that product. It may be a best practice for your business. It depends on what level of risk you're willing to accept to make sure that it's issued long in advance so that you're sure that you have it when you export those products, but it's not required to be issued at any point in time. It just has to be requested. The requirement is that it's requested before the product is exported, and that in enough time that it's issued and transmitted to meet the filing requirements at import.
Awesome. And this is a good question to follow up with. Are clients able to send blanket requests for the season for NOP import certificates for one commodity? You briefly covered that, but I wanted to get a little more into that.
Mm-hmm. The regulations allow a certifier to have some flexibility. Again, it's one commodity or one HTS code. It could be multiple products with the same HTS code. The regulations allow the certifier to have the flexibility of whether to issue the NOP import certificate for a single commodity, a single shipment of a single commodity, or whether to issue it for a specific quantity that could be shipped over multiple shipments. And QCS is taking a risk-based approach. And at this point, we are allowing the operator to request a specific volume to be exported over multiple shipments up to a maximum period of, right now we're going with 6 months. We're just going to test that and see how that works. I'm sorry, right now we're going with 3 months, just to make sure that we understand the system and have adequate oversight. And we may change that with time. But it's really up to the certifier of the exporter what level, based on the risk assessment of the operator and of the products. I will say that we have recently updated, after a little bit of test driving, our NOP Import Certificate request form. You'll notice that the form does allow you to request multiple products on the same NOP Import Certificate request form. And that's just to ease the paperwork burden. So that if you have multiple products going in the same shipment, you can request them at the same time, but we are still required to issue a separate NOP Import Certificate for each of those products. But want to reduce, duplicating paperwork for our clients.
Excellent. The next question is, what does the real-time enforcement of NOP import certificates look like? In other words, are organic shipments being held or stopped if an NOP certificate has not been issued or requested?
Meredith asked, what are the real-time enforcements mechanisms looking like right now? Are shipments being held or stopped if an NOP import certificate has not been requested or issued? That's a lot to unpack, Meredith. I will say that we are still in the very early stages. Today, when we're recording, this session is Friday, March 29th. So we are 10 days into the implementation dates and enforcement date for strengthening organic enforcement. So right now, there could be shipments that left their country of origin, that were exported from the country of origin prior to the implementation date, especially products that are traveling by ship, moving around the world. There are products that that could be moved by ship that were exported before the implementation date. So for those products, the NOP import certificate is not required because it wasn't required until March 19th, 2024. So for products being exported on or after March 19th, 2024. However, if you are an exporter that QCS were to certify and you exported something without an NOP import certificate, and QCS found that through the course of our oversight of your operation, we would issue a notice of noncompliance because that is non-compliant with the regulation. The same goes for if you're an importer that is certified by QCS and you don't have a system to verify that each import is associated with a valid import certificate if it was exported after March 19th, 2024, that product would be non-compliant, and QCS would issue a notice of non-compliance for that. Getting around, there's no way around the requirements. These are the requirements, and certifiers will be issuing non-compliances for not following the requirements. I have not heard of any shipments being stopped in port or being told they can't be represented as organic yet. But remember that enforcement of this goes into effect March 19th. So any exports leaving after March 19th. And also remember what the purpose of these import certificates. Again, Exports prior to March 19th weren't required to have this. So if you have a shipment that's out there that doesn't have it and it was exported before March 19th, you don't have to worry that it's going to be stopped. That's not the issue at hand here. But the purpose of this is to verify the organic status of all products being imported into the United States. And the USDA National Organic Program will have access to the automated commercial environments. They will be able to see what is being imported into the United States, and they'll be able to monitor what's being imported into the United States to look for trends, to look for possibilities of fraud, right? And so that's a big part of why this is being required, is to ensure the organic integrity of products that are being marketed as organic in the United States.
Well, if someone is has a single shipment that contains multiple products, do they have to have an NOP import certificate for the shipment or for the products?
The NOP import certificate has to cover a specific volume of each product that has its own harmonized tariff schedule code, or HTS code, right? Whether that covers only products within a specific shipment, or whether it covers products within a multiple shipments, is up to the certified operation, the certified exporter, and their certifier, right? But if a shipment contains multiple products with multiple HTS codes, it needs to have an NOP import certificate covering the entire volume, at least the entire volume of everything, every product in that shipment. So for individual products, if you've got 10 products with 10 different HTS codes, you're going to have 10 different NOP import certificates. Whether or not the import certificate covers multiple shipments of that individual product listed on the NOP import certificate is up to the exporter and their certifier.
The next question is, if you have one shipment being imported to the US that is destined for more than one importer, would both importers need to enter the data and make those import certificate requests?
That's a great question, Meredith. I am so glad you asked. If there are multiple importers that are associated with a single shipment, how does that work? The NOP import certificate is issued for a single product with a single HTS code. So it could be multiple products, branded products, but with a single harmonized tariff schedule code going to a single import, right? So the importer's name is going to be listed on the NOP import certificate. It's requested by the exporter, but if that exporter is sending on the same boat products to two different importers, the same product, but it's going to two different importers, they need to have two different NOP import certificates. One for importer A for the volume going to importer A, and one for importer B for the volume going to importer B. And then each of those importers is then responsible for entering the data on the NOP import certificate into the ACE system with those filing requirements at import.
Excellent. All right, the last question here is for folks who import highly perishable items. So they may not have a fixed quantity that will be on that particular shipment, but it will arrive by air within 24 hours. What types of actions are certifiers going to take for those very quick turnaround perishable commodities?
We have a team of folks that are reviewing NOP import certificates. And we have on our fee schedules, depending on what country your operation is located, if you're served by the US office, you would use the US office fee schedules. If you're served by the Ecuador or the Dominican Republic office, you use the local fee schedule that will explain what turnaround times we can provide. And you can provide the expected turnaround time that you're with your NOP import certificate request so that we can turn around that quickly. But remember, you want to give us enough time and full information so that we can verify the validity of that. So if you have product that is perishable and it's going in one day, don't wait for, if you're exporting it on a Friday, say, don't wait till Friday morning to send us the NOP import certificate request. Give us enough time that we can meet the turnaround times. They could be 1 to 2 days, 5 to 7 days, that we can meet those turnaround times for you in enough time to validate the information and the organic integrity of the product, so that we can issue that in the organic integrity database, get it to you as the exporter, and then you can get it to your importer. The good news about this is that if all of the information is there, right, and there is, it's easy for us to verify, we can issue them actually quite quickly, and you can transfer them electronically. The NOP import certificate does not have to accompany the shipment. It doesn't have to be physically with the shipment. It just has to be there at import so the importer can enter it. So it can be turned around quite quickly, but you know, we appreciate as much lead time as possible. And you know, that's an option for issuing or for requesting a higher volume that's not necessarily associated with a single shipment of organic.
Excellent. Those are the last official questions that we have. One last piece I wanted to add, if folks are watching this and they would like to become certified, our standard timeline for certification from the submission of an application through to us making a certification decision is 90 to 120 days. We do have a couple of expedited options available. However, those are only available dependent on our administrative capacity. And sometimes we are not able to accommodate those rush timelines, especially now when we are seeing such a high volume of clients coming in to certification. However, as of today, March 29th, we are still accepting new clients. However, we are most likely going to be working on our standard 90 to 120 day timeline.
Meredith, if a uncertified operation is interested in getting certified, I'll share that if you're located in Ecuador or the Dominican Republic, you should go to that specific office and consult with folks about the certification process within the office in country. But for anywhere else in the world, whether you're an exporter or an importer, you should contact the QCS main office out of Gainesville, Florida. And that contact information, Mare, is?
You can call us on the phone. Country code is 1-352-377-0133. And the email is qcs@qcsinfo.org. Someone from my team will either pick up the phone or reply to your email. Typically, we reply to new inquiries within 48 hours of them being submitted.
Fantastic. So those same contact information can be used if you're an existing client as well, if you have questions about the implementation of strengthening organic enforcement, the final rule. I will remind folks that QCS is the certifier, and so our role in this process is to verify the organic status of the organic operators in the supply chain that are certified by QCS. And we also can provide technical support. This is not support that's specific to your operation, but general information to help you understand what the USDA organic regulations mean and what they require. But we are not a consulting service, and we're actually prohibited by the USDA organic regulations from offering specific support to your organization. But we do have a lot of resources available on our website, www.qcsinfo.org, to help you understand the regulations, as well as links to external resources like the USDA National Organic Program to help you understand the regulations. And we also have a list of consultants on our website, so that if this is a process that you feel like you need expert advice on, to help you through that process. QCS can't give you that specific advice for your operation, but there are consultants out there. And we have a list of consultants that have brought clients to QCS in the past. We've worked with those folks in the past, and can vouch that they're qualified folks. And yeah.
Thank you all so much for joining us for this presentation. Thank you so much, Beth, for all of your thoughtful answers and your great presentation. And we hope to hear from you, and hope this answered any questions that you had. If not, please do feel free to contact us.